Hello, my name is Alasia. I'm a certified substance use counselor, and I'm making these educational videos in order to increase the quality of substance use treatment worldwide. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to handle disruptive group members while you're facilitating a recovery related group session. And this is such an important topic to cover because when you're not properly or doing your best to manage a disruptive group member, it affects everyone's experience. And a disruptive group member frustrates the other patients in the group, whether they say anything or not, because they're coming here for treatment and here is this really distracting person. And trust me, it's just very annoying, and it makes you feel like, why am I even here? So there's so many scenarios about disruptive group members that I can go into, but today I'm only going to focus on a few. And if you have another scenario that you would like me to cover, maybe in a video or in an email, feel free to email me using the email in the description of this YouTube video, and I will be sure to get back to you and give you some feedback about that. So the first scenario is someone who is making a lot of comments. So what I mean by this is as someone is sharing, they're commenting on what they're saying. For example, they might be asking them questions, several questions. They might just be making any random comment about what they're saying. For example, if someone says, like, I have a garden, and they're talking about how important their garden is to them, and they're just asking all these questions about, how do you garden? Oh, how long have you been doing gardening? That's not appropriate in a group setting when we're giving someone the floor to share. And so the first few times someone does that, you can let it slide and just take it as, okay, they're just curious. But if it keeps going on, especially to every group member, it's important to you don't have to shame them or make them feel humiliated, although a lot of people just have a problem with ego and pride, so they will feel that anyways. But at the end of the day, you can't worry about offending someone and in sacrifice of the rest of the group's experience. And so I'm not saying to be rude or smart or sarcastic with them. What you can do is ask, like, hey, I know you have a lot of questions and even some comments for this person, but I really want to give everyone the chance to just share without being interrupted. And you just make it that clear for them. And if they understand, that's great, and you move on. If they do it again, you say, hey, remember I told you we want to give people just the floor to really share, and I do want you to keep the comments to a minimum. If the comments keep going, I might have to ask you to leave, just because I want to create a space where everyone feels like they really have their time and their moment to share. And so in groups, we don't want it to, depending on the kind of group. I know, for example, in Celebrate Recovery, that's not really a group counseling treatment group. That's like individuals are sharing for maybe 3 to 4 minutes, and there's no comments or feedback or nothing like that. But usually in a group setting in a substance use treatment facility, we don't want it to be so rigid where no one else can ever talk, but we do want to give people their space and their moment. And then we can invite people to give their questions and comments afterwards. But we also want to stay on topic as much as possible. So that's number one. Number two is someone who's taking over the group and talking too much. I have been in this more than once. And so at first, it's okay to let someone talk a little bit more than others, because there's always going to be people who are very brief and who are very concise. But you cannot let someone take over the whole group. That is very frustrating and very rude to the other group members, okay? Because essentially you're saying it's basically becomes a one-on-one session, or it becomes the group is about them, and that's not what groups are for. And so say someone goes like maybe 4 minutes more than everyone else does. It's obvious that they talk more. You need to not be afraid of offending someone. You need to not be afraid of rocking the boat, because again, if you're doing that, you're basically sacrificing everyone else's experience. So you just got to be firm. You don't have to be rude and say, hey, I love everything you have to say. Or you could say, hey, thank you so much for, giving all that detail with sharing. I do got to check in with everyone else, or I do got to give other people the floor as well. But I thank you for you sharing as well. So you just got to make it straightforward. Do not be afraid, again, of offending people, because that's just not fair. I've been in a group where pretty much one person talked the whole time, and I'm like, really, this was the group? This was our group, this person talking? And the person obviously didn't have the confidence to stop them, or the confidence or knowledge, but that's really rude to everyone else. So just be that firm. I remember one time I told someone that I said, "Thank you for sharing. I do got to check in with everyone else." And one of the other group members was like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, I didn't make any comments towards that because that's not something I would comment on at the end of the day. Like, we got to keep the group running. And so, even if I, that's going to be really rare that someone has that reaction. Most people are going to be silently grateful that you put an end to it. But, if someone does do that as well, you can talk to them about it afterwards. But that doesn't really matter, someone getting upset about that, unless you're like, they've only talked for 2 minutes and you're cutting them off. Like, no, this is people who are going on and on. And then also make sure to have a conversation with someone like that afterwards, after the group, one-on-one, and just talk to them about expectations in group and give them resources. Say, hey, it sounds like you have a lot to speak about. Maybe we could set you up with a therapist, something like that, so that you have someone one-on-one that you can speak to. Okay, another scenario, people judging or criticizing others in the group. So whether someone's like sharing and they're criticizing something that they said, or they're making judgments about what they said, that's inappropriate in the group setting. It's supposed to be a safe space where people are able to open up about personal things, where people are able to open up about their feelings and their experiences. And if someone is judging or criticizing someone, you need to put an end to that publicly in front of everyone right away. A quick note from future me about this point, I'm really talking about things that are not grossly inappropriate. So if someone's criticizing and shaming someone for saying something very, very inappropriate, like they've talked to a minor, or they believe in abusing their kids, that's something that you would have to address publicly. I'm more talking about in this scenario about people just judging and shaming people over things that, say someone stole, they're admitting that they stole from their mother, like money from their mother. That's not something that is appropriate to criticize and shame someone in a recovery group for. But if someone says something grossly inappropriate, you definitely have to address that and make it clear to everyone that you do not agree with that, or make it even clear, like depending on what it is, say, hey, that's something that I don't want you to get into this group because that could be triggering to other people right now, or that's something that let's talk about that afterwards. Or depending on what it is, you might have to say like, hey, you might need to be removed from the group at this point, depending on what they say. So just wanted to make that quick note. It is unfair for someone to be being vulnerable and now being judged and criticized. People who are in recovery already have shame because of just how the world perceives them, and also just because how their addiction has affected those around them, and they tend to be experiencing shame from those around them. And a lot of times it's understandably so, because if they've caused chaos, obviously that's understandable. But treatment is a place where there should not be, any shame. It should just be us processing the shame and really overcoming it, but also having a space to talk about things that have held us back and that could potentially hold one back in their recovery. So if someone is judging or criticizing someone in the group, you need to say directly to them in front of everyone, we do not judge or criticize anyone else in this group. And depending on what they said, they may need to be removed from the group. As a counselor, you really should know when it's gone really too far and where someone needs to just be removed from the group at that moment, and tell them, hey, that is inappropriate. I'm going to remove you from the group. I'll call you back later, or go talk to your case manager if it's in residential. Like, that you got to make it clear to everyone publicly, especially in front of the person sharing, that that is not okay and that is not the kind of group we're running here. So that's number 3. Number 4 is if someone's saying something hateful or derogatory. So this could kind of be the amplified version of the previous point. But if someone is saying something hateful, whether it's homophobic, whether it's racist, whether it's anything like that, or everything and anything in between, that person needs to be addressed publicly in front of everyone, not necessarily shaming them and being immature about it, but they need to be addressed sternly, assertively, and publicly in front of everyone, so everyone in the group knows that's not okay and they need to be removed from the group immediately. I heard of this scenario with someone who was in a group and someone said something homophobic. They said something to the effect of like people who are gay should be harmed. And I was confused as to why that person wasn't removed from group. Now, the counselor did say that they checked in with someone else in the group who happened to be gay, and they checked in with them to make sure they were okay, but that person should have been immediately removed from group. What should have been said was something to the effect of, hey, that is so inappropriate. We do not have engage in hate speech or support hate speech in this group at this facility at all. I need you have to leave the group. That is so inappropriate. You're no longer allowed to be in this group at this time. We'll follow up with you later. Something like that. That has to be publicly addressed and shown that that is not okay. Someone like that should not be finishing or completing the group. That is not okay at all. The next one is if someone is getting political. Now, it's so interesting about this one. This political sort of speech that they might be getting into may turn into something hateful or derogatory, so it may go along with the first point. But someone getting political they don't necessarily have to be removed from group unless it gets to that point. But if they're just making comments about the political landscape, you could, validate them and help them to process some of the just discomfort they're having with the political climate. But in terms of them making rants or trying to tell everyone what to believe or making rants about political figures, that's inappropriate. And I'll give an example of someone saying like, hey, there's these ICE raids going on right now. It's very, very stressful. I don't agree with it. That's something you could say like, yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing going on right now. And I could understand like, how could that could be very stressful for you. But if they're going on a rant about immigration and laws and political figures, that's when you say, you know what, I see that this is a very frustrating thing for you and I support you in that. However, we can't get into political topics in group for many reasons because people have varying beliefs and we want to be respectful of everyone's beliefs, but also we just want to stay focused on what we're here for, which is recovery, and politics really has no place in this group. And just keep it at that. Now, if it gets to something hateful or derogatory, like I expressed previously, that person needs to be addressed publicly that is not okay, and they need to be removed from the group. So thank you so much for watching this video. Again, it's so important to handle disruptive group members because it ruins everyone's experience. It makes treatment very annoying and stressful, especially for people who are there genuinely trying to get better, genuinely trying to participate in a group and get everything they can out of it. So if you have any additional questions, comments, you can leave a comment below, but also you can email me using the email in the description, which is maketreatmentbetter@gmail.com or maketxbetter@gmail.com for any scenarios that you want me to respond to or anything like that. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.